The business doesn't care who's graduating, who's turning 75, what birthday party it is, what the special occasion is. Doesn't matter one bit. We're on the clock. We're always on the clock. It's a blessing. It's a burden. It's all those things. That's the job. That's what we sign up for. I don't say it with any complaints. I feel blessed and privileged to do what I do. It's just that you're never off the clock. Some people punch out of their jobs. They punch the clock. It gets to 5 o'clock on Friday. They're done for the weekend. See you back Monday. We never see you back. Mm-hmm. We're always on the clock. And it's not always busy, but that call, that text, anything could happen at any moment, at any time. And that's the way the job it is. That's the world we live in. That's how things have come to be over time. And so that's what we have to deal with.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Raw Facts Podcast. I'm your host and producer, Ben Arthur, joined by a guy who really needs no introduction, ESPN's Adam Schefter. He's their top NFL insider and NFL newsbreaker. For all of you football fans, you know who he is. He's really synonymous with the NFL and its news. Adam, thank you so much for joining the show. Really appreciate you joining me.
Well, Ben, thank you for those kind words. And I didn't realize you were the producer of this podcast as well as the host of the podcast. So double duty for you. Very impressive. And I'm happy to be with you today.
Yeah, no, really appreciate it. And being the producer, just kind of be a jack of all trades, so to speak. And I don't have a team. It's all me right now. So hopefully in time that changes. But to kind of get right into it, Adam, I know in your career, you kind of started out as a beat reporter. I know you're at the Denver Post. We kind of were talking before started recording about how you interned at the Seattle Post Intelligencer. And I know you kind of worked your way up. You landed at the NFL Network, and now you're at ESPN. But I guess what maybe drove you into wanting to become an NFL newsbreaker and insider in the first place?
Well, it's a great question, Ben. And what I would say is it wasn't like I set out to become an NFL insider. When I got hired after my internship in Seattle, in Denver, I took that job in part because part of it as a general assignment reporter was covering the Denver Broncos. And I thought, wow, I get to cover an NFL team. This is so great. But I also really wanted to cover baseball. And at the time, Colorado was bidding for a Major League Baseball franchise, and it landed the Colorado Rockies. And I interviewed to become the beat writer for that particular newspaper. And I like to laugh and tell the story sometimes where I was working for the Rocky Mountain News, and I really wanted to be a baseball beat writer. And there was a guy on my block who also wanted that job. He was a general assignment reporter for the Rocky Mountain News. We both interviewed, and neither one of us got that job. We both were rejected. We both were distraught, disappointed, very unhappy about the fact that we were bypassed for this job, as many people are when they try to get jobs. And that particular guy left the Rocky Mountain News to go write for the LA Times, where he won a Pulitzer Prize, and then went on to write the books with Andre Agassi and Phil Knight called Shoe Dog, and Prince Harry's memoir Spare. His name is J.R. Moringer, friend of mine, and J.R. didn't get the Colorado Rockies beat writing job, and it launched him into this prolific writing career that he's put together. I was told, no, we're not going to hire you as the Rockies beat writer. We're going to have you stay on the NFL beat covering the Broncos. So I was forced, Ben, to stay covering football as opposed to baseball. And I guess I should send the Rocky Mountain News a huge thank you note that the newspaper prevented me from chasing my dreams, because had it allowed me to do what I wanted to do, I would have been a baseball beat writer, not a football reporter. And it's hard to imagine that in this world that anybody would go to cover baseball ahead of football, with the popularity of the sport being what it is today. And so, again, very fortunate. So I didn't really pick football so much as football picked me. It was really dumb luck. I aspired to do something different. I kind of got stuck covering the football team. And I like to tell people all the time, I've said it over and over, I got my undergraduate degree from Michigan. I got my master's from Northwestern. And I got my graduate degree from the Denver Broncos because I got to cover that team for 16 years. And the NFL then was a lot more personal than it is today because I'd be at training camp with these guys for 3 weeks. We'd be eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. I'd see them, coming off the practice field, going into the dorms to eat or the dining room to eat, checking into their dorms. Like you're around them all summer. And I think that beat writers today are shielded a lot more and they don't have the access that I had back in the day. And so that access allowed me to understand what it was like to cover a team, to deal with individuals, to find out what you could and couldn't do, to find out what was acceptable and what wasn't. And that was a 16-year education getting your graduate degree from Denver Broncos University. That's what it really was. While I also dabbled in covering the NFL and watching the way that other people did it. So I feel very fortunate, very blessed to have covered that team, to be in that area, to work for the Rocky Mountain News and then the Denver Post. It was great training for me. And there are a lot of ways to go try and chase your dreams, particularly if you want to be in media. But that one was what worked for me. And, I didn't grow up wanting to become a football writer like many people do. I didn't set out to do it. It just sort of happened it was an accident that happened along the way, like a lot of this.
Yeah. First of all, like I'm so jealous that you had that kind of access in the 90s, because I mean, like you said, we are a lot more shielded. The access is much more limited. So landscape, as you said, is so different. But go ahead.
No, we're talking about the access, and you're jealous, and it's not the same. And I agree. And as you're talking about that, the first thing that pops to my mind is like I'm a single guy living in Denver, so I don't have a wife to go home to. I don't have kids to go home to. So literally, I would stay in the building late at night, and I would read about the NFL. I'd have all kinds of clippings and research, and I just stay there doing all kinds of research. And there would be coaches that you'd bump into late, and the Broncos owner Pat Bowlen was always in the building late. So a lot of times I go up to his office and we talk for a little bit, and he was so gracious with his time and the way he treated me. And so, like I said, I'm in that building, the Broncos complex, and I mean in the building, not in some distant media room the way they have it set up today. I'm in the building, right, from 7:38 in the morning till 9 at night every single day. And so that was my home. I didn't have anything else. That was my home. And they took me in and they were very gracious to me. And I was able to learn a lot just being in that building. And it was a very long, slow process, but you see how it pays off over time with some of the relationships that you build and some of the people you get to know and the things you get to see are acceptable and unacceptable.
Now, Adam, is there a part of you that still wants to cover baseball? Like, is that something?
No.
Oh, no. Okay.
Man, that dream has been dashed. It was stomped
Just
on back
sure.
in the early 1990s.
Okay.
And that fire has never been reignited. And no, I'm not interested in covering baseball. Now, I will say that the day, if I'm ever going to become an insider in another sport at some point in my life, you know what would interest me?
Basketball.
Well, I like that a lot.
Because I know you've covered some basketball in the past.
No, but Woj got that covered pretty good. I'm not going to say
that. That's true.
I wouldn't mind becoming a golf insider.
Why is that?
Well, I love watching it. It's like one of my hobbies is, I'm in a golf fantasy league and you play, daily lineups with golf, for a few dollars. Literally, I mean, $3 lineups with my buddies, like, on DraftKings or FanDuel. And I love that. And so I don't know, over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, I've gotten into the point where literally I will watch entire golf matches from Thursday to Sunday. And I watch, the golfer that we pick or the golfers that we have in our lineups. I will watch every shot that they hit all weekend long.
Wow.
And so to me, to be a golf insider, like in this day and age when more and more people are playing fantasy, I think that's kind of a cool thing. Like that would interest me. But I'm busy right now.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that.
The football season is about to begin. So.
Yeah. 100%. And Adam, I'm really curious, like, what are the emotions, maybe the feelings you get when you know that you have a massive scoop that maybe no one else has, or that you got to get it out before anyone else? Like, what are kind of take us inside what it's like kind of in your head, like your mindset when you have something like that?
The only thing I could equate it to, I guess, Ben, would be like it's a player scoring a touchdown. It's a player hitting a home run. It's a golfer getting an eagle. It's just it's an adrenaline rush. I mean, you've had stories in your career, right, Ben?
Yeah,
Doesn't it feel like you just scored a touchdown or you're
it
about to score a
does.
touchdown, right?
It's addicting almost in
Oh,
some regards.
it is very addicting. And once you see that feeling, you want it again, right? It's a rush. It's a
Mm,
total rush. And the bigger it is, the more wound up you get. And sometimes stories just boom pop onto your phone, like you just get a call or a text out of nowhere, like you didn't know was coming. And other stories, you're tracking for days or weeks, for a long time, waiting to happen.
mm.
So they come in all different ways, all sizes, shapes, and forms. And I've put a ton of work into some stories, and they didn't materialize. And then I put very little work into other stories that did materialize. And there's no rhyme or reason; they just sort of happen. But big stories are big stories, and there's a certain sense of adrenaline that comes along with every single one of them. And I always like to say that, many coaches can recall all the details of a certain play, like Sean McVay can recite every play for. I can recite circumstances and situations surrounding big stories, like where I was, what I was doing.
Mm.
Like they're all ingrained in my mind. And you can recall where you were and what you were doing during most of them, if not all of them.
So going off of that, Adam, what would you say out of all the? I mean, you've probably broken thousands of stories at this point. What is going off of that? What is maybe your most memorable one, or the one off the top of your head right now that kind of stands out the most that you broke, and why?
Well, what I like to say there is that I think what stands out, it's not that it's a certain story, it's certain thing, but how it interferes with life, right? Like, so it gets
Mm,
in the way of things. Like I sat down at my daughter's middle school graduation in June, and just as I'm sitting down, I get a text. The ceremony is about to begin. Dalvin Cook is getting released from the Vikings. Okay,
mm,
bam. So you got to deal with that. I remember being at my son's college graduation dinner. We just sat down at the table, and I knew that this particular trade was in the works. But as I sat down, we're ordering the appetizers. We're on drink one. We're toasting them. Oh, hold on. AJ Brown's being traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. Or my mother-in-law's surprise 75th birthday party. And literally, we're in Piermont, New York, and she walks in. Surprise! We sit down at the table for her 75th birthday dinner, lovely night to honor a great life and 75 memorable years. And I get a text, are you free for a moment? And I said, well, I'm at my mother-in-law's 75th birthday dinner. What's up? I had some information. So I stepped outside to find out that Andrew Luck was retiring.
mm.
Right. So I guess the business doesn't care who's graduating, who's turning 75, what birthday party it is, what the special occasion is. Doesn't matter one bit. We're on the clock. We're always on the clock. It's a blessing. It's a burden. It's all those things. That's the job. That's what we sign up for. I don't say it with any complaints. I feel blessed and privileged to do what I do. It's just that you're never off the clock. Some people punch out of their jobs. They punch the clock. It gets to 5 o'clock on Friday. They're done for the weekend. See you back Monday. We never see you back.
Mhm.
We're always on the clock. And it's not always busy, but that call, that text, anything could happen at any moment, at any time. And that's the way the job it is. That's the world we live in. That's how things have come to be over time. And so that's what we have to deal with.
So knowing that, Adam, like how all consuming 24/7, specifically your job, I mean, mine can be very much like that at times, but yours is at a whole nother high gear because you're
Well,
a
we all do this
yeah,
together, Ben. Like, I
yeah,
mean, you're covering Tennessee, and I'm covering the NFL, and so I mean, you could be, at the beach on a Saturday and get a call that, hey, they just traded somebody, they just cut
yeah,
somebody. Like, I mean, that happens to all of us. It's
yeah,
just that's the irregularities of one of these jobs, right? Like, it just is such that it doesn't care about weekends, holidays. There are no weekends and holidays. There's just, well, it doesn't mean it's always going to be busy, because it's not, right? But it's just, that's just kind of the way it is. It's just, you're
yeah,
always on call.
yeah,
I always say, like, it's like being a doctor, except what we do is far less important. We're not trying to save lives. We're just trying to pass along some information.
yeah.
Doctors are on call. Hey, we need to see you right away. Okay, well, you get a text, something's happening. And
Yeah.
sometimes it can't wait.
Now, just knowing that though, like what are the maybe some of the boundaries or the priorities that you've tried to set in your life um to make sure that you are your best self when you are doing your job and knowing that you're on call all the time, but are there things like certain boundaries like workouts, family time, like what are those things that you try to do to make sure that you're at your best self?
Well, it's funny. I used to view, in a prior life, I guess, I used to view my workouts as kind of my sacred time. And it was the one time of the day that I would not carry my phone or phones with me. I'd leave them in my gym locker. And this was, of course, pre-pandemic when I was a member of a gym as well. But I would not bring my phones with me in my workout. And I work out about an hour a day, roughly. And so no phone. And I remember I was in a spinning class, and I remember it was a Tuesday in April. And if we go back and look at the year of this particular situation, that would be the last day that I ever left my phone in the gym locker or was without it, because I took this 8 a.m. spin class, and I got back to my locker and I looked down at like 16 missed text messages
Mm.
that had come in 45 minutes earlier about how the Titans and Rams had agreed to a trade with the number one pick.
Oh
The
man.
Rams were going up to number one. The Titans were going back. Here's the term trades. Like it was all there. And,
Mm.
you know, it was all there. It
Yeah.
was there before it was out in public. And then eventually, whether it's 2 minutes later, 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, whatever it is, in the world we live in, the story goes somewhere else. Somebody else reports it.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've never left my phone in a gym locker. I've never not taken my phone with me to work out. So when I'm on the Peloton bike, the phone's on the table next to me. So if somebody calls, which often happens, then you take it. So workouts now get interrupted. They just do. Like you rarely have an uninterrupted workout without some call or text. And you're also to the point where you're okay. Well, let me just grab my phone and check this, and so it's just it's hectic. It's busy. It's just part of the evolving nature of our jobs over time. It used to be that the news cycle was every 24 hours in my mind, with a newspaper that hit your front door at 6 a.m. or whatever it was. And then you don't have to worry about anything till that newspaper hit the door, step the next day at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And now it's every minute, doesn't matter when. We're always on the clock. That's just kind of the way it has been.
Now, how does your family feel about that at
Well,
times? I mean, I'm sure they're accepting, they know what you do, right? But there are
yeah,
times where I bet it's really frustrating. How
yeah, of
how have
course.
they grappled with it, and how do you kind of deal with that, knowing there may be frustrations at
What I like, first of all, you're 100% correct. And I'm not any different than a lot of people. Like, a doctor who's at the dinner table and gets a text about a patient, or a lawyer who gets a text about a case, or I mean, we go on, right? But it's just that my job is a little bit more public. People see what's going on, so they're more privy to it. So it's a great question that you ask. And I guess my response is that there are many people in that exact situation now that we all have smartphones and cell phones, and we can be reached at any hour of the day. And so, I can only speak for me, and I know however many people are dealing with the same thing or very similar issues, I try to just keep my phone kind of between my legs at dinner, and
Mhm.
I try if unless I know I have to take something to let it go during dinner. But the phones are always there. I mean, I sleep next to a phone, right? Like that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So uh, that's what the job that comes along with doing the job, and just how it is.
And Adam, you know there are a bunch of different perceptions out there about you, largely because of the job you do, right? I guess what do you feel that the people, the masses get wrong about who you are?
I really don't. I try not to think about that very much.
Mhm.
Um, I really don't. I think I don't know what they think. I mean, I'm sure there are people that like me. I'm sure there are people that don't like me. I'm sure there are people that agree with some of the things I do. I'm sure there are people who don't agree. Ben, all I'm trying to do, honestly, is work hard, try to be fair, accurate, quick, instinctual, be on the news, and if somehow uh, people approve of that, great. If they disapprove it, that's unfortunate. But I know that I'm working hard as I can, and that sometimes things will work out, sometimes they won't. Like anybody in any
Yeah.
line of work, nobody is immune to not making a mistake or wanting to do something over. But again, I've just tried to work hard. I've done this since 1990, so we're 33 years into it. Um, and that's a long run in anything for anybody.
For you, who kind of maybe instilled kind of that mindset, right? Maybe not necessarily blocking out the noise, but as you say, just kind of doing your job and do
Well,
it the best you can. What was the yeah,
there's nobody that's instilled that. It's just like you just learned it over time because it used to be that when Twitter started, I joined ESPN in 2009. I had never been on Twitter. When they hired me, I didn't even have a Twitter account, which is hard to imagine. But you tweet something, you look and you read the comments, and I think over time, after a few years, you learn, okay, I'm not going to read this. Like this is insulting. This is mean spirited. This is gratuitous. I'm not going to bother. And I can say that I almost always don't read the. Now there are times every now and then your eyes will drift to something, and I'm like, let's not do this. Yeah, there's no need to do this. And so I guess it's like an athlete or like a coach. You just do the best job you can to put on blinders and do the job that you can and work as hard as you can and make sure or hope that it's as good as possible. Uh, Sometimes the noise, of course, seeps through those walls. You're not completely immune to it, but I try to make sure that I really uh, don't focus very much at all on what other people are saying.
got it. And now, Adam, the sports media landscape is changing a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like, and especially from those in our space, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of pessimism in a lot of ways because as we're recording this today,
Yep.
the New York Times just
Yeah.
announced that it's disbanding its sports department. We know what has happened at your company just in terms of the layoffs of well-known on-air talent. For the future, Adam, for kind of future journalists, the
Yep.
young kids who are maybe in high school or just thinking about the industry or and who are maybe kind of discouraged about all this, about
Yeah.
what it's all going to look like, what would you tell those folks about getting in and maybe what it takes to find success in this kind of changing landscape that we're seeing now?
Ben, I would just say this again. The world that people are entering today in 2023 is a lot different than the one that I entered into the workforce in 1990.
Yeah.
But I still believe, and maybe you, as somebody who is almost 30 years my junior, can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Uh, Good work still stands out. A well reported story still stands out. Whether that's a feature, whether that's a news story, whether that's a different kind of story, whatever it may be, good work done often enough gets noticed. So if you're covering the Tennessee Titans and you're writing great features or you're breaking some news, somebody's going to notice. It
Mm-hmm.
just, it has to be in this world. Like, there's no way it wouldn't be. So the traditional path that I would have followed, like I interviewed with the New York Times to become the New York Giants beat writer. And at one point, I actually thought I'm going to leave Denver and become the beat writer for the New York Times for the New York Giants. Like I debated doing that. And I don't even remember if the New York Times ever actually offered me the job. I think they did offer me the job. Um, but it was like at the same salary. And I was very happy in Denver. And the Broncos, like I said, gave me this tremendous education in an indirect way. And I'm like, well, what am I going to leave this for? To go live in New York where it's costlier, where it's not going to be as personal.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I'm very happy in there. I'm going to stay here. And so I didn't go. So maybe, whereas people my age wanted to start out at a smaller paper and build up, you'd start at a small paper and build up to a place like the Rocky Mountain News and then to the New York Times, whatever it may be. Those traditional paths, it seems, aren't there anymore. So now you can make your own content. You could be on YouTube, you could be on TikTok, you could be on Instagram, you could be on Twitter. But again, I still say, if you are the one who's writing this untold story of some wide receiver that overcame some unbelievable adversity and has an incredible story, people are going to care. If you're the one that reports on this feud that's going on between a coach and a player, or a fight that erupted in the locker room, or some drug suspension that no one knew about, if you report on these things, people will notice you're like, oh, Ben Arthur wrote that story about that. Wow, that was a hell of a story. Oh, Ben Arthur broke that. Oh, we got to get to know this Ben Arthur a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more. And so, how you get from point A to point Z, I think, is a lot different than how I would have done it back in 1990, pre social media, pre the news cycle being as quick as it is. But the idea then was to do good work. And I still think, as old fashioned as it may sound, the idea now is to do good work. It's just how it's distributed and how it's consumed are entirely different.
Mm-hmm. And now, Adam, kind of back to the specifics of your job as like a newsbreaker. What fulfillment do you find in that? Is it, as you said, just the fact that you're doing a good job, or striving to do a good job? Like what exactly is it about what you do that helps you feel whole or fulfilled, so to speak?
I think everybody in whatever line of work they're in, they know when they've done the job the right way, and they know when they've succeeded, um, when they're on top of things and out front of things. You just kind of feel it, and um, I don't know. Anybody that goes to work, they go into the office and they leave at the end of the day, and at the end of the day, say, "Oh, that was a good day." Like you know it, and when you leave the office, you're like, God,
Yeah.
I wish I had that lead over, or I wish I had asked this question, or I wish I had pursued that story, and can't believe I didn't get that story or whatever. Like, everybody's got good and bad days at work, and it's no different for us. And so you hope that the good days outnumber the bad days, and that uh, this job is basically covering the league and staying on top of things and tracking things, and uh, you just try to do it as well as you can. And sometimes it works out, and other times it's not as good as you'd like it to be.
Yeah. Adam, is being the best at what you do, is that because you are kind of the best at what you do? Is that a motivating thing for you, or does it just go back to like just feeling like you did a good job on that particular Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? How do you look at that?
Yeah, well, thank you, man. I would say that I think that it, what that's about is, there's a few things. There's a professional pride in what you do. And my professional pride matters to me an awful lot, probably more than it should. Like, I care about doing the job well, the right way, being on top of news. Like, I care about those things. It matters to me. It's important. And so there's a certain standard in my mind for the way things should and shouldn't be done. And so when you say, I don't know, what fulfillment do you find? It's just a certain standard that you have in your own mind for doing the job a certain way. And you just try to do it to that standard as much as you can, and you hope that it's enough. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. And hopefully, more often than not, it is.
Yeah.
But again, it's not an easy thing. There are so many people vying for information. There are Ben Arthurs on every team out there. Everybody's trying to get that story. Everybody's trying to be on top of the news. Everybody's trying to write that feature that makes a difference, tell some sort of untold story. And so, people have seen the value in coming up with untold stories, insightful features, uh, stories that haven't been told, breaking news, information that people didn't know. It's always mattered, and it still matters. And again, it matters to me personally. I care about it a lot,
Mm.
trying to do the job the right way.
Whenever that time comes, Adam, for you to, I guess, call it a career,
Oh,
to
you're
put your
running, you're running me off, Ben, or
no,
what?
no, I'm not coming for your job yet. Uh, but whenever that time comes, whenever that is, when it
Yeah.
comes time to delete Twitter, to stop tweeting every day, Instagram, Threads now, or whatever social media
Mhm.
apps are going to be there in the next couple of years. When your time is done, I guess, how do you hope that people will look at your career?
Well, it's still evolving, so
Yeah.
it's hard to answer that question right now. Um, hopefully, I still have more time left. Uh, I'm fortunate enough that I've got a little bit of time left in my contract here at ESPN. It's been a great place to work. I love working there. Been a lot of great people. I've been fortunate enough to work with some tremendous teammates, producers, researchers, editors. They make you look a lot better than you really are. And so, I don't know. I just want to continue to, I guess, set a standard, uh, care about what I do, and have people know that there's a certain way to do the job, and try to do it to that effect if you can, if it's possible. And by the way, I've done it for 33 years. I don't know whether I'll get 3 more, 6 more, 13 more. No idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we'll go into golf, like I said, and do that and start 33 years there, Ben. Who knows? But
Yeah.
it's been a privilege to get to do what I've gotten to do for 33 years, and excited for a new season. And like I said, feel very thankful that I get to continue to do this job.
And you mentioned evolution, that you're still evolving, that it's hard for you to kind of answer that question. I
Yeah.
guess so. Going off of that, I guess how do you see yourself evolving right now? As you kind of continue to grow and develop with the phase that you're at in your career right now.
Well, as you mentioned, the industry is changing all the time, right? Within the last week, Threads was introduced. I didn't know what Threads was a week ago, and here we are on another social media app where you can essentially press a button and have thousands of people find out whatever it is that you have just put out there, just like that. Um, so the world gets quicker all the time. As you mentioned, the New York Times disbanded today. So there goes, at one point, was this incredibly prestigious sports department that many people, including myself, once aspired to work to or work
Mhm.
for. So that's weird, right? Like, there's a blending of entertainment and media and content and outlets, and streaming services and pluses. I
Yeah.
mean, it's crazy. Like, who knows where it's going to be in 10 years? Like I said, when ESPN hired me, I didn't have a Twitter account. I didn't have an Instagram account. Threads, I had no idea what that was. So, it's constantly changing. And the one thing I do feel pretty strongly about, like, I noticed it. I was at the draft this year, and I was in the hotel gym the next morning. It was 7 a.m., 7:30, and NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell was in the gym. And he goes, "Well, what do you think of the draft last night?" I said, "You guys have done an unbelievable job at growing this to the point where, like, it's now the NFL's Coachella." And it's
Good
so
way to put it.
big, it's so big that it's just more impersonal. Like it used to be where Radio City Music Hall, and you could hear people talk because it just wasn't that busy and it wasn't that loud and it wasn't that crowded. And we're all there, and the teams are at the right there in front of you, and the players are behind stage. And you could walk behind stage, and now it's like in this open air park, and there's concerts and there's music, and I'm sitting next to Chris Morrison. I can't even hear him talking me. Like he's talking on camera. I can't hear what he's saying, and I'm sitting right next to him. And I said to the commissioner, "This has gotten so big and so loud and so much more. It's congratulations on the success of it all because it's bigger and better than ever, but it's just not as personal. It's just not."
Well, Adam, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for joining the show. Everyone, appreciate you guys for tuning in, for rocking with me as always. This has been the Raw Facts Podcast. You can subscribe to the show on YouTube, and you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Adam Schefter, ESPN's top NFL insider and newsbreaker. Thank you so much for joining this show. Really
Ben,
appreciate it.
thank you for having me. Great questions. Enjoyed being with you, and it was an honor to finally get to meet via whatever platform we're on right now.
Yeah.
This constantly evolving world.
Yep, definitely. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.